The fight did not start with a punch. It started with laughter. Instructor Valkesh was midway through a tactical ethics lecture when the sound rolled through the room. Sharp, mocking, layered with the clicking tones of 3 predator species who shared the back row. The classroom was not an arena. No suppression fields. No medical drones on standby. Just desks bolted to the floor and a wide open space meant for discussion, not bloodshed. That was why Valkesh felt his frills tighten. "Cadets," he warned without turning, "this is not a—" The desk skidded. Metal scraped against stone as one of the benches was shoved sideways, deliberately, violently, sending datapads clattering to the floor. The laughter grew louder. Valkesh turned. 10 cadets stood now, all non-human. A mix of species that dominated close-quarters combat across half the coalition. Tall bruisers with dense muscle and bone plating, Nethrix stalkers built for speed and ambush, a pair of Kravoks whose species specialized in pack-overwhelm tactics. They formed a loose semicircle around a single-seated figure. A human. Cadet Jace Miller hadn't stood up yet. He sat with his elbows on the desk, chin resting on his knuckles, eyes tracking movement rather than faces. Dark hair slightly too long by academy standards. Uniform sleeves rolled to the forearms. No visible armor or augmentations. He looked bored. "That seat's taken," one of the Tallans said, shoving the desk again. "By us." Jace glanced at the desk, then back up. "It's assigned," he replied mildly. The Kravoks laughed. "Humans and their rules," one hissed. "You think those matter in here?" Valkesh stepped forward sharply. "Cadets, stand down." A Nethrix flicked a claw toward him without looking. "Stay out of it, instructor." Valkesh froze. That was a violation. A severe one. But before he could escalate, Jace raised a hand slightly. "It's fine," he said. "I'll move." The semicircle leaned in. Predators smelled submission. Jace stood. Not fast. Not slow. He picked up his datapad, slid it into his bag, and took one step sideways. Then another. The Talon grinned. "That wasn't so hard," it said. The third step never landed. A Kravoks shoved him from behind, harder than necessary, sending him stumbling forward into the open space between desks. Jace caught himself with one hand on the floor. The room inhaled. Valkesh shouted, "Stop!" Too late. The Nethrix lunged. Jace rolled. The claw missed by centimeters, scraping sparks from the floor. Jace came up on one knee, eyes no longer bored. Focused. The Talon charged next. Massachusetts momentum. Overconfidence. Jace didn't block. He sidestepped, hooked the Talon's forearm, and redirected the charge into a desk. Stone cracked. The Talon didn't get up. The classroom erupted. Chairs overturned. Desks wrenched loose. Cadets shouted in half a dozen languages as instinct took over and the 10 moved at once. This was not a duel. It was a swarm. Jace exhaled. One breath. Then he moved. He ducked under a swinging limb, struck upward with the heel of his palm into a Kravok's throat joint, and spun before the body hit the ground. A Nethrix leapt from a desk. Jace stepped inside the arc and drove an elbow into its chest, collapsing its lung sac with a dull thump. 2 down. 3. A Talon grabbed him from behind. Jace dropped his weight. Gravity did the rest. The Talon hit the floor first. Jace twisted, using the grip as leverage, and slammed his heel into the Talon's knee. There was a sound like breaking wood. 4. The remaining cadets hesitated. That was their mistake. Jace surged forward, closing distance before pack coordination could reassert itself. He struck nerve clusters, pressure points, structural weak spots, movements precise, economical, terrifyingly practiced. He didn't punch hard. He punched right. A Kravoks went down choking. A Nethrix froze mid-lunge, muscles locked. Another Talon stumbled, dropped, didn't rise. 7. 8. Valkesh watched in horror as the classroom transformed into something unrecognizable. This was not academy sparring. This was controlled devastation. 2 left. They tried to retreat. Jace didn't chase. He waited. Predators circled instinctively, seeking advantage. Jace shifted his stance, lowered his center of gravity. The last 2 attacked together. They didn't land a hit. Jace stepped between them, redirected one into the other, and struck once. Clean, surgical, final. Both hit the floor. Silence crashed down. 10 alien cadets lay scattered across the classroom, groaning, unconscious, or staring in shock at limbs that refused to respond. Jace stood in the center of it, breathing steady, hands open. Valkesh's datapad began screaming alerts. Security, medical, administrative override. He barely noticed. His eyes were locked on the human. Cadet. Miller, he said, voice shaking. What in the voids did you just do? Jace looked around at the destruction. Oh, he said. Sorry about the desks. That is not what I asked. Jace finally looked at him. I ended it, he said simply. Valkesh swallowed. You dropped 10 combat-trained cadets. In under 20 seconds. Jace shrugged. They shouldn't have grouped up. The words hit the room harder than any strike. Medical teams rushed in, skidding to stops as they took in the scene. One medic stared at Atal's shattered knee and whispered something unrepeatable. Security officers froze at the doorway, unsure who the threat even was. Jace picked up his bag and slung it over his shoulder. Am I in trouble? He asked. Valkesh stared at him. Trouble? The thought felt absurd. Cadet, he said slowly. Why didn't you disengage? Jace met his gaze. Because they weren't going to stop, he replied. And you were about to lose control of the room. Valkesh felt a chill run through his frills. You assessed that instantly. Jace nodded. Crowd dynamics, he said. You get used to it. Used to it where? Jace hesitated. Just long enough. Earth, he said. The instructor looked at the fallen aliens. At the shattered desks. At the human standing calmly among them. And for the first time, Valkesh understood something terrifying. This had not been a fight. It had been containment. And the human had chosen not to go further. The academy locked down in under 8 seconds. That alone should have told everyone how seriously command took what had just happened. Bulkhead shutters slid into place with teeth-rattling force. Corridor traffic lights flipped to red. Armed security teams were deployed to every level surrounding the classroom, moving with a speed reserved for riots or active predation events. Inside the room, the air felt thick. Medical drones worked quickly, scanning fallen cadets, administering stabilizers, tagging injuries. None of the 10 were dead. None were permanently maimed. But several would require weeks of recovery. And every single one of them was alive because the human had chosen precision over power. Instructor Valkesh stood unmoving at the front of the room, hands clasped behind his back now, posture rigid with the effort of maintaining authority in a space where authority had just been proven optional. Jace Miller stood near his desk, backpack still slung over one shoulder. He had not tried to flee. He had not sat down. He simply waited. Security arrived in force. 6 officers, all armored, all predators, all visibly unsure which direction to point themselves. Cadet Miller, the lead officer said carefully. You will step away from the injured and place your hands where we can see them. Jace complied immediately, slowly, deliberately. No sudden movements. Several officers relaxed a fraction without realizing why. Valkesh watched closely. That alone told him more than any report would. Jace understood de-escalation instinctively. They escorted him from the classroom under guard, not because he resisted, but because no one was confident enough to let him walk alone. The hallway was silent. Cadets pressed themselves flat against walls as Jace passed. Not with fear exactly, but with calculation. Predator instincts parsing risk where no visible threat signals existed. In the holding chamber, Jace was asked to sit. He did. The door sealed. A moment later, the observation field activated. 3 figures appeared behind the translucent barrier. Academy Command. Valkesh recognized them instantly. Administrator Valkeshian. Tactical Oversight Officer Run. Human Liaison Dr. Halvorsen. All of them were very still. Cadet Miller, Valkeshian said. You are aware that you engaged in unsanctioned combat. Yes, ma'am. You incapacitated 10 cadets. Yes. In an academic classroom. Yes. A pause. Explain, Rune said. Jace thought about that. Which part? He asked. Dr. Halvorsen winced slightly. Start with why you didn't disengage, Valkeshian said. Jace met her gaze. Because disengagement wouldn't have ended it, he replied. It would have delayed it. Rune's eyes narrowed. You're saying you predicted escalation? Yes. Based on what? Body language. Group formation. Noise levels. How fast they closed distance, Jace said. Once the desk got shoved, it was already past verbal resolution. Valkeshian exchanged a glance with Halvorsen. You didn't call for help, she said. No, Jace agreed. Why? Jace's answer came immediately. Because by the time help arrived, someone would have been seriously injured. Possibly killed. Silence followed. Run leaned forward. You are a first-year cadet, he said. Where did you learn to assess group violence that quickly? Jace hesitated. Just long enough to matter. Crowd work, he said. Halvorsen tilted her head. Crowd work where? She asked gently. Jace exhaled. Earth, he said. Disaster zones. Evacuation security. Riot containment. Rin scoffed. That doesn't explain neutralizing apex predators. Jace looked at him. No, he agreed. That part's just anatomy and physics. Valkeshan's mandibles twitched. Cadet, she said. Do you understand how close this incident came to being classified as a massacre? Yes, ma'am. And yet, she continued, you left no permanent damage. Yes. Run's voice hardened. That suggests restraint. Yes. Why restrain yourself? Rin demanded. Why not ensure no one could get back up? The question hung heavy. Jace looked at each of them in turn. Because the goal wasn't to win, he said. It was to stop the event. Halvorsen's eyes sharpened. That distinction matters to you. It matters to humans, Jace replied. Ruin folded his arms. You could have killed them, he said. Yes. You chose not to. Yes. Why? Jace leaned back slightly in the chair. Because if I'd gone further, he said, then I would have become the problem you were about to lock the room down for. That answer hit harder than anything in the report. Valkeshan sat back slowly. You stopped early, she said. Yes. Run stared. You're telling us, he said carefully, that what we saw was not your maximum capability. Jace considered the wording. It was appropriate force, he said. Not maximum. The room went quiet. Halvorsen closed her eyes briefly. That's what I was afraid of, she murmured. Valkeshan tapped to control. Footage appeared on the barrier, slow-motion replay of the fight. They watched it again, this time with new eyes. They saw the pauses Jace had taken, the moments where a follow-up strike was possible and intentionally not taken. They saw him reposition to avoid lethal angles. They saw him choose joint locks over head trauma. Rune swallowed. He was managing outcomes, he said. Yes, Halvorsen replied. Not opponents. Valkeshan nodded once. Cadet Miller, she said. You will be temporarily removed from general classes. Jace nodded. Expected. You will not be punished, she continued. Jace blinked. You will be reassigned. To what, he asked. Valkeshan's gaze hardened. To a track we have avoided formalizing, she said. Because we did not like what it implied. Ruin finished the thought. Human crowd suppression and crisis containment. Jace let out a slow breath. That's a long name, he said. Halvorsen smiled faintly. We'll workshop it. The door unsealed. Security escorted Jace out, not to confinement, but to a different wing entirely. Word spread faster than command could suppress it. Not the footage. Not the injuries. The number. 10. 10 Apex cadets. In a classroom. In seconds. Predator academies whispered. Some were angry. Some were afraid. Most were curious. Instructor Valkesh stood alone in the ruined classroom hours later, staring at the damaged desks, the gouged floor, the faint scorch marks where claws had scraped stone. He replayed the moment over and over in his mind. Not the strikes. The restraint. That was the part that kept him awake. He filed his report at the end of the cycle. It was brief. Observation. Human Cadet Miller did not escalate to dominance. He executed containment under uncontrolled conditions. He ceased action once threat vectors collapsed. Conclusion. This was not a classroom fight. It was a live demonstration of crisis suppression. The Academy updated its protocols quietly. Classroom security thresholds lowered. Instructor hesitation policies rewritten. And one new advisory was added to the internal handbook. If a human intervenes early, allow it. If they intervene late, evacuate immediately. Jace Miller attended his next class 3 days later. Smaller room. Fewer students. All watching him very carefully. He took a seat near the back this time. Someone whispered. Is it true? Jace didn't look up. Is what true? That you dropped 10 of them? Jace paused, then answered honestly. They fell, he said. I just made sure they didn't take anyone else with them.